Thousands across the Middle East mark the first anniversary of the killing of top Iranian general Qassim Soleimani. At least 79 civilians have been killed in suspected Islamist attacks in Niger. And thousands rally in Nepal's capital in support of Prime Minister Khadga Prasad Oli. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south. Thousands of Iraqi mourners have condemned the American occupiers 1 year after a U.S. drone strike killed Iran's revered commander Qassim Soleimani and his Iranian lieutenant Abdul Mahdi al-Muhandis. Thousands of black-clad mourners Saturday night converged at the spot near Baghdad's international airport where the U.S. hit the two vehicles and killed Soleimani, Muhandis, and 8 other men. The anniversary of their deaths in Baghdad, which brought the U.S. and Iran to the brink of war, was also marked in Iran and by supporters in Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and elsewhere.
And the parliament to expel the occupying foreign forces, especially the brutal American forces, the infidels, the immoral, who killed the heroes and leaders of victory.
In Lebanon, Hezbollah on Sunday also marked the first anniversary of Soleimani's killing with a ceremony at the country's southern border with Israel. Officials raised the yellow Hezbollah flag with the faces of Soleimani and al-Muhandis.
We stand on the borders with Palestine and the Golan Heights, Shiva Farms and the hills of Kafar Shuva to say that victory is coming.
Based on our experience, the martyrdom of any leader of the resistance has strengthened the presence and roots of the resistance. The blood of our fighters increases our confidence and perseverance to achieve our goals.
Pedro Pierluisi has been sworn in as Puerto Rico's governor, vowing to achieve statehood for the U.S. territory and to fight against poverty, corruption, and COVID-19. Pierluisi, a Democrat who previously served as Puerto Rico's representative in Congress for 8 years, obtained the lowest number of votes for any governor in the country's history, with nearly 33% of the ballots cast.
I have listened to our people and acknowledged our need for a better governance in Puerto Rico. That is why I will work hard to look for what unites us instead of what divides us. I need everyone to battle our common enemies: the pandemic, poverty and crime, lack of access to good education and health care, economic stagnation, corruption, and inequality. Those are the battles we need to fight together. Those are the battles we must win to put Puerto Rico on a path to recovery and progress. It is time to put aside the crisis and get on with the pending recovery projects. Demand equal rights and fair treatment as American citizens.
A party on a bus on December 26 led to a spike in COVID-19 cases in Barbados. Among the infected are military and prison officers. As such, Prime Minister Mia Mottley announced a revision of the country's curfew hours and an end to gatherings to stem the spread of the virus.
I advised the Attorney General to draft a further directive that will allow us to institute a curfew from 9 o'clock at night from tomorrow, the 2nd of January, for the next the next 7 nights until the 9th of January, but with the proviso that we may extend it until the 14th or further if necessary. That dampener is to still allow persons to be able to go about their business and to do their work, but at the same time to ensure that we reduce significantly the numbers of persons moving about. We did that yesterday when we announced also that Monday and Tuesday would be closed to businesses other than supermarkets and gas stations, who obviously need to facilitate people's access to food or medicine or other urgent things as they do on a bank holiday. With those measures in place, we also believe that with immediate effect that we were allowing official gatherings of persons up to 50 or more. But now that we've seen the increased numbers of positives, I have equally advised the Attorney General that there are to be no banquets, social gatherings, fetes, limes of any number whatsoever.
From Wednesday, persons in quarantine in Barbados will be made to wear tracking bracelets. The announcement comes 2 days after a Swiss national was fined with $2,900 for breaching quarantine.
The bracelets that we are speaking about are tracking bracelets. They have a mechanism, they're tamper-proof, and they're also water-resistant. And as soon as anyone tries to do anything, an alarm goes off and the command and control will receive those alerts, and we will then be able to respond. If a person goes out of the area that they're supposed to be in quarantine, again, the alarm goes off, and we will be able to respond and respond promptly. So this will give a level of comfort to us, especially based on the experiences that we've been having within the last few weeks. And so we expect to be able to roll out that program come Wednesday.
A team from the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center has arrived in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and has begun installing monitoring equipment at the TeleSUR volcano, which continues to exude magma. The volcano showed signs of activity on December 29th, and the country remains on orange alert.
What we can see is that the effusion or the extrusion of magma and as it gets to the surface becoming solid rock, and the growth of the small dome has continued. It seems that it started out at a particular rate, and it's slightly increased over the days since it started. The growth is still focused in the same area, just west of the dome, of the old dome, the 79 dome, and it's essentially expanding a little bit further, moving towards the west. It's getting a bit bigger. And it's basically doing what we expect. Once effusion starts at Soufrière, it can continue for several weeks, months, and in the case of the 71, 72 dome, it went on to a little bit over a year. So what it's doing now is what we expect.
Jamaica has officially recorded the new COVID-19 variant after testing 20 persons who entered the country from the UK on December 28th. Flights from Britain are no longer accepted.
As we had announced, 20 samples from persons who returned to the island from the UK on December 28th were positive, and that those samples would be sent to CARFA for further evaluation. The ministry can now confirm that 4 positive samples are of the new strain, the variant strain, which led to the restrictions in the first place. So those were tested. The Public Health Agency of the region, CARFA, got the samples, and 4 so far have been confirmed positive of the new strain. Of the samples submitted to CARFA, 6 met the criteria for genetic sequencing based on the viral load contained in the sample, and from those, 4 were found to be the variant strain. Again, the Chief Medical Officer and the other technical members can elaborate more on that. It is to be noted, however, that through the actions of the government following on the recommendations from Public Health, that we were able to quarantine and test those passengers on the UK flight. I believe that was reported. As a result, the 20 positive cases were isolated in a government-approved facility, and based on home assessment completed, some were allowed to isolate at home. As at today, the report is that they all remain stable and are asymptomatic. Those who returned a negative result were fitted with monitoring armbands and transferred to home quarantine. The reports from the health department have indicated that as of today, they all remain asymptomatic. Barring the development of any symptoms over the next 3 days, those in isolation will be deemed as recovered, and the intention is to release those individuals. The persons in home quarantine will be also released by the parish health authorities.
Meanwhile, the Jamaica Labour Party is mourning the death of its campaign manager for the Northeast St. Anne District, Tyrone Robinson. The 58-year-old died in the U.S. from COVID-19 related complications after receiving treatment for several weeks. Reacting to the news, Prime Minister Andrew Holmes described Robinson as, quote, a key stalwart of the JLP who gave yeoman service to his country. Let's take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. In Brazil, Rio de Janeiro's new mayor, Eduardo Paes, has been sworn into office. On his first day, Paes launched a raft of investigations into corruption allegations against his predecessor, Marcelo Crivella, an evangelical pastor allied to far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. Crivella was arrested on December 22nd and suspended from his job. His administration is accused of forcing companies to pay bribes to win public contracts, committing irregularities in the construction of a COVID-19 field hospital, embezzling pandemic funds, and running an operation to stop journalists from covering the health crisis. And apart from the inauguration of Rio's new mayor, swearing ceremonies will take place across Brazil's 5,570 municipal governments over the course of the next week. Our correspondent Brian Muir is in Sao Paulo and explains how this will impact Brazilian politics.
This week in Brazil, 3,448 leftist city councilors are taking power, along with 240 leftist mayors from the PT, the PCdoB, and the PSOL parties. Now, this represents moderate gains for the left. The big gains this year in terms of mayors and city councilors are from traditional conservative parties that are antagonistic towards far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. It's a major week of losses for Bolsonaro's ruling coalition. Nevertheless, the Brazilian Workers' Party, which took a beating in 2016 because of a coup d'etat in process which saw the ouster of Brazil's first democratically elected woman president, Dilma Rousseff. That year, it lost a lot of power on the municipal level, but this year it's gaining it back. There was a 20% increase in votes for PT candidates in Brazil's largest cities. And there have been some important historic victories. Margarita Salomão has taken over as mayor of Juiz de Fora, and she's the first woman mayor in its 170-year history. This is symbolically important because Juiz de Fora was the city where the 1964 military coup began. And so there have been some very emotional ceremonies of inauguration, some of them online, some of them happening in person with masks and social distancing. But in general, it's a day of victory for the Brazilian left because it shows that despite years of character assassination and slander against the left in the hegemonic Brazilian and international media, it hasn't rolled over and died. It's made moderate gains, and there's some exciting new things happening at the local level in cities like Contagem, Juiz de Fora, Diadema, where there'll be more opportunities for the PT to implement its legendary virtuous cycle model of democracy deepening at the local level.
We thank our correspondent Brian Muir for that report. Brazilian authorities have detected the country's first 2 cases of a new strain of the novel coronavirus. The 2 identified patients are residents of Sao Paulo who are believed to have been infected abroad. The country's Adolfo Lutz Institute is undertaking research to establish the genetic sequence of the strain, which is believed to be 70% more contagious. Brazil has reported more than 7.6 million COVID-19 cases, ranking 3rd in the world, and has over 195,000 cases. Moving on, in an interview with Spanish journalist Ignacio Ramonet to mark the end of 2020, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro discussed the installation of the new National Assembly on January 5th and the struggle to recover the country's assets held abroad.
A new National Assembly is coming with full legislative powers, and I think that will help to advance in the objective of recovering what belongs to the Republic. This doesn't belong to Maduro or to a group. We are talking about assets that belong to the Republic, money, and the heritage of all Venezuelans.
2 French soldiers have been killed after their vehicle hit an improvised explosive device in northeastern Mali. The 2 soldiers' car was hit by the explosive during an intelligence mission. Both of them were members of a regiment specializing in intelligence work in Mali. Another French soldier accompanying them sustained injuries. At least 50 French soldiers have been killed in Mali since France intervened in 2013 to help the country fight jihadist militants. At least 79 civilians were killed in simultaneous attacks on 2 villages by suspected Islamist militants in Niger, near the border zone with Mali. According to security sources, 49 people were killed and 17 wounded in the first village, while 30 villages were killed in a neighboring village. No group has claimed responsibility so far. Niger has previously suffered attacks by Islamist militants linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. Attacks near the western border with Mali and Burkina Faso and the southeastern border with Nigeria killed hundreds of people last year. Niger's ruling party candidate Mohamed Boussoum will face former President Mahaman Ousmane in a presidential election runoff in February. According to provisional results announced by the Electoral Commission on Saturday, Boussoum led the first round with 39.33% of the votes, falling short of the 50% needed to win outright. On the other hand, Ousmane received 17% of the votes. The second round is expected to be held on February 21st after the results of the first round have been validated by the Constitutional Court, which will hear any appeals.
The valid votes cast amount to 4,778,573. The valid votes cast are the ones I just given you for a participation rate of 69.67%. The votes thus obtained are distributed among the following candidates: Bazoum Mohamed, 1,879,543 votes, or 39.33%. Mohamed Ousmane, 811,838 votes, or 16.99%. Sainia Umaru, 426,623 votes, or 8.95%.
Let's take one last short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. India has authorized the emergency use of 2 coronavirus vaccines developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University and by local pharmaceutical firm Bharat Biotech.
After adequate examination, the CDSCO has decided to accept the recommendations of the expert committee, and accordingly, vaccines of Messrs. Serum and Bharat Biotech are being approved for restricted use in emergency situation, and permission is being granted to Messrs. Cadila Healthcare for conduct of phase 3 clinical trial in India.
Tibetans living in exile in the Indian city of Dharamshala have voted in the first round of elections to choose a new political leader of the 17th Parliament. Citizens who live outside their China-ruled homeland are voting as the current office holder's 5-year term nears its end. Tibet is formally an independent nation and was incorporated into China nearly 70 years ago. During that time, thousands of nationals fled to India and other countries around the world where they are still based to date.
This is a momentous and historic event because, even though we are in exile, even though in South Asia we are refugees, but we are exercising our fundamental right. Thereby, we are walking shoulder to shoulder with other democratic countries around the world.
Thousands of people have rallied in Nepal's capital, Kathmandu, in support of Prime Minister Khadga Prasad Oli. The rally comes in response to several anti-government protests after Nepal's parliament was dissolved on December 20th on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, and French elections were called for April and May 2021. Several petitions have also been filed in the Supreme Court against the Prime Minister's action. The opposition has also accused Oli's government of corruption, and his administration has faced criticism over its handling of the coronavirus. 11 Hazara Shia Muslim coal miners have been killed in the southwestern Balochistan province in Pakistan. Gunmen reportedly abducted the coal miners, took them to nearby mountains and opened fire on them, killing 6 on the spot. The other 5 who were critically wounded died on their way to the hospital. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. However, after news of the incident spread, members of the community took to the streets to protest. Israel plans to vaccinate 2 million people by the end of January. Starting on December 19th, when Prime Minister Netanyahu got his first jab, Israel launched an aggressive push to administer the vaccine made by U.S.-German pharma alliance Pfizer-BioNTech. The vaccine must be given in 2 separate jabs, administered 3 weeks apart. The health minister said that around a fifth of Israel's people, starting with health workers and those over 60, would have had both shots by the end of January. As of Friday, 1 million people had received their first injection. Israeli protesters have rallied in Jerusalem as they continue calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to resign over corruption charges. People gathered near Netanyahu's residence as part of a nearly 7-month-long protest movement. Israeli media reported about 2,000 people were in attendance. He stands trial for alleged fraud, breach of trust, and for accepting bribes. 5 women have been killed and others injured after a projectile exploded in Yemen. The explosion took place at a New Year's Day wedding party in Yemen's Red Sea city of Hodeidah. Several children were among the wounded. The attack came a few days after 26 people were killed in blasts in the city of Aden. The Saudi-backed government and Houthi rebels blamed each other for the attack.
The killing of the women and children is a New Year's gift from the aggressors to the people of Yemen and Hodeidah specifically, a gift which we will return on their territory in the near future.
Rescue teams searching for survivors of a landslide in the Norwegian village of Ask have found no signs of life amid the debris 4 days on from the tragedy. 3 bodies have been recovered, but rescue workers are still looking for 7 more people believed to be missing. The landslide is the worst in modern Norwegian history. Norwegian police have published the names and the birth years of 10 people initially reported missing, including a 2-year-old child, but had not yet identified the 3 recovered bodies. Over 1,000 people have been evacuated, and officials say up to 1,500 people may be moved from the area amid fears of further landslides. In Belgium, 27 elderly people have died in a COVID-19 outbreak at a retirement home following a super-spreading St. Nicholas party last month. The care home in the city of Mol organized a December 4th visit from a troop playing the beloved saint who usually shares presents. The event led to a widespread coronavirus outbreak, causing at least 88 infections among residents and 42 among staff. Initially, one of the actors of the St. Nick group had been thought to be the source of the contagion, but this has not yet been proven.
In her room when she can't get out, she has to eat in her room. She sees very little people. Also, the people at the home have no time for her because it's so much dead and sick people. They have no time for her.
It's becoming hard, always being alone, and they must stay in the room because she is infected by corona, but she has no symptoms. But she must stay in her room.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also be sure to follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. See you next time.